Today I have with me Jay Forte of the Greatness Zone and Life Possibilities, Larry Hagner of the Good Dad Project, Thomas Fiffer of the Good Men Project, and Tommy Maloney of Blended Family. And I am your host, Chris Eischen.
Yay!
So I think we're going to start off this first episode by everybody just kind of introducing a little bit about themselves. So I'll start off since I'm kind of the moderator or whatever. My name's Chris Eischen, and I host a show called The Kick-Ass Dad, and you can find that on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. And I also teach a course called Life Possibilities that was designed by Jay Forte. And so with that, I'll lead right into you, Jay.
Hey everybody, I'm Jay Forte. I'm a speaker and coach. I deal with anybody with coaching, but primarily with middle school, high school, college kids and their parents, trying to figure out how to help them be ready for life.
Awesome. So, Larry, do you want to go next?
I will go next. My name is Larry Hagner. I founded the Good Dad Project. I am a speaker, author, and myself. And so I think this is a great setup because Jay obviously, especially the older kids, the teenagers. Since I do not have teenagers yet, my specialty is more, the kids who are 10 and younger. So I don't know anything about the teenage world yet, but I know a heck of a lot more about the kids who are under 10.
You are in for a treat, Larry.
That's what I hear.
Yep, it's all true.
Cool, very cool. Thomas, you want to take it?
Sure. I'm Thomas Fiffer. I'm executive editor at the Good Men Project. We're a website devoted to engaging men and women in a conversation about what it means to be a man, and particularly a good man in the 21st century, and fatherhood and man's role in parenting is really one of our core issues. So I'm really happy to be here and to be a part of this council and the discussion.
Awesome, and we're glad to have you. Tommy, you're up.
I'm Tommy Maloney. I am the co-founder of Blending the Family, and what Blending the Family is, my wife and I always call it the Brady Bunch minus Alice because we can't afford an Alice in our house. And so what we have, my wife has 2 daughters, I have a son, and so 2 years ago we got married, and what we've accomplished is we kind of built a marriage on a guessing game, how to blend a family, what we hope was the right way. And so right now nobody's killed each other, so I think that's a good thing. I'm also an author, speaker, coach, along with my wife, and I am just so blessed to be here with a great group of talent, and hopefully I'm not just here for my good looks. Especially on the podcast.
Well, I'm excited. This is something I've been putting together in my mind for a long time, and it was just like, who am I going to have on this show? Like, in my mind, seeing it in my head, like, how am I going to find these people? And I think we put together an amazing group of guys, so with so much insight from all different areas. So I'm really excited about what everybody has, is bringing to the table. Everybody's got their own unique style and perspective, so it's pretty cool. The other thing I'm excited about is the Dad on the Street portion of this. It's where we get out into the public and get out to your AKA normal dads that are out there living life and see them, what it is that they're struggling with and what they're dealing with throughout life. and then bringing it to the council and kind of throwing it around, batting around some ideas of ways that things they can do, things that worked for us, and all that.
What's up, guys? This is Larry Hagner. I'm with the Modern Dad Council. Chuck has how many kids?
Two.
Two? And you've been married how long?
1 year now.
1 year, okay. And these boys are stepkids, or they're yours?
Yeah, they're
Step-boys?
stepchildren. No.
Okay. And how old are they?
6 and 10 years old.
All right, 6 and 10 years old, children. So, Chuck, what are your thoughts on? You can give us your perspective on it.
Yes. My perspective is the number one thing is communication with husband, wife, and you need to put the children first.
Right.
You know, there's not necessarily the dad's going to do this, the wife's going to do this. I think it's more of an individual family aspect where, like in our situation, Diana and I, it just kind of happened. I said, okay, I'll do the dishes and I'll do my own laundry, because she was feeling stressed with doing me. Occasionally I was doing the dishes, occasionally, once every few months I would do the laundry, and then I would also cook. You know, that was my main job, and clean here and there. But she was stressed, so we talked about it, and I said, you know what, I'll do the dishes, I'll be the dishwasher. It's okay, you know, I'm fine with that, and I'll also do my own laundry. You know, I'm a grown man, right? I should do my own laundry. So I've been doing that, and it's actually been helping out a lot. You know, we still cook our own food and for each other, but we both compete in bodybuilding and are very athletic, so we have to have a certain amount of calories per day. Can't just go out and even eat Subway. You know, we're pretty strict, so we got to spend a lot of time with that. But back to the children, I think, you know, putting them first is the most important thing to do, and figuring out what works for, you know, your wife, your kids. And I think with any relationship, whether it's a marriage, father, son, mother, daughter, it needs to be communication is the key, and talk. Any thought you have, whether it's a little bitty thought or a huge thought, you need to discuss it. If you bottle it in, guess what's going to happen? It's going to blow up right in front of your guys' face. And that is not a healthy or successful marriage. But yeah, those are my thoughts on what has worked for us. And as far as the children goes, she does pillow talk with them. 10 minutes every night before bed. They talk about the day. If they had a rough day, she explains to them, well, why did you have a rough day? And we don't pressure this. It's all in the air. Everything's open. And I think that's very important. And we do have expectations for the boys, but we're not. They don't respond well to like the military style. You know, you got to do this, you got to do that. You know, you got to give and take a little bit. Know when to come back.
So what do they respond well to? What have you found? The boys
with a tone like I'm saying now. Like, you know, you can tell they're upset. You just ask them, what's wrong? And they'll usually kind of lie a little bit, say, oh, nothing. I say, no, what's going on? Is it, you know, girl problems? Is it your friend? Homework? Just, I'm here for you. I'm here for you 110%, all the way, on everything. And, you know, and they respond to that. And usually, 10 minutes later, they'll say it. I don't force it out of them. Anytime you give them pressure, then they reject back, you know. So they usually come back and tell me what's bothering them, and then they respect me even more, and I find that now they can pretty much tell me whatever they want. But it's being open. You don't feel like you gotta hide things from your children. You should talk to them about anything and everything. They have a question, you need to explain it, because if kids are very smart. If you just sugarcoat everything, and when you know what hits the fan, guess what? It's going to go in their face and they won't be prepared for it. You know, so.
Right. So I think that's excellent advice.
What'd you guys think about that? Is there any perspectives that anybody, like Jay, did you have any thoughts on his style of parenting and, you know, maybe some coaching tips and some of the things he discussed there?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a modern dad perspective, and I like the things that he said that reminds us that, you know, it's a shared role to raise kids. You know, I don't always agree with everything said. I think, you know, the relationship between the partners is the lead one, because I think that's what keeps a relationship strong. I think kids see that, learn from that. So in 1 minute, I agree with a lot of what he said. But, you know, as a modern dad's going to look at this and see, you know, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. Communication, absolutely. Communication between the parties at the top, if you want to call it that, just so that there's some order and structure and clarity about what is and what isn't. And I think that open communication between the parents shows the kids how it's done, so that as things do come up into their lives, that they can, in fact, talk about it. And I like what he said, too, about, you know, that the clearer we are about creating time for our kids to share with us what they're thinking, I think it's right that a dad be involved in that conversation. Though I know Chuck said his wife did the pillow talk, you know, where she spent time with them. Maybe it's because they're her kids. And Larry, I definitely want to find out what you think about that from a blended family, on how you ask, you know, your stepkids things. But really important that both moms and dads talk about that. I know that was a big thing that I did. Now, so I'm a gay dad, and when I had the kids over with me, we did that at nighttime. We talked about what was cool, what was exciting, what's going on with you. We just created time, and it wasn't because there wasn't another person in life. They had a mom too. It's that I thought it was important enough in my own life that I spend that kind of time with my kids, and I like to think that's a really modern dad perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, Tommy, you had something that you want to say about the blended family aspect of it?
Right, and during that interview with Chuck, by the way, great job, Larry. Ironically, Chuck and Larry, that's just my thought.
Chuck and Larry, right.
Yes.
Just
Love that movie.
Yeah.
Back to, you know, the first thing, you know, Jay's point about communication. Communication is so key, no matter what relationship. If it's with the kids, it's with your partner, communication is so key. And one of the things that my wife and I did as far as communication goes was, like Chuck was talking about, kids come first. When my wife and I first started dating, we both said that if the kids didn't get along, we weren't going to continue on. And bless the kids, they do get along. They do get along just like a brother and two sisters, and they treat each other just like brother and sisters. But the way we started off with, we dropped the word step. We never understood the word. What is a stepchild? What is a step-parent? Every horror movie you see is dealing with what? A stepdad. We dropped that word step, and we came up with, and I don't know where we pick it up from, but we call each other bonus. This is your bonus sister.
Oh.
This is your bonus brother.
I like that.
Bonus mom, bonus dad. And it's actually, in the 2 years we've been married, it's now, that word is actually dropped. And it's now, this is my brother, this is my sister. So that's where I want to throw my 2 cents in there. But, you know, again, to Chuck's point in the interview, the kids do have to come first. They have to, no matter what, in a situation where you are taking 2 families and smushing them together, you want to make it as seamless as possible.
That was kind of like one of those Chinese movies, because you clapped, but the video was behind. Sorry.
I planned that.
Yeah, that was cool. You know, I raised 2 kids that weren't mine for 10 years. And when I got divorced, I see those kids once in a while now, but I haven't had them overnight. And it's like I'm nothing anymore. That was a really hard thing for me, because their dad wasn't around those 10 years that I was raising them. So I was their dad. They would introduce me as, this is my dad. And then to quick, like literally their dad popped in the picture, and within 6 months, my wife filed for divorce and moved out, and
Ooh.
tried and used the kids as her reason for moving out. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't understand what's going on here. But yeah, I definitely took that role on as a co-parent. You know, it wasn't like these are your kids and this is my son. You know, because we had a daughter together, but not until later. So our kids were 10 before our daughter was born. Well, 9. Yeah, 9 before she was born. But at any rate, that was 8 years that I had raised, you know, her kids, and they had just turned 2, or were about to turn 2 when we started dating. So, and their dad, that was the last time I really even saw their dad. So, it was really tricky on how to handle all that and how to start. Because when I met her, she didn't do any of the disciplinary things or any of that. She just kind of let her kids run around. She didn't have a mom growing up. Her mom died when she was 6. So her dad worked all the time. He worked at the factory that I was working at not long ago, and worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. So the kids kind of raised themselves. So she hadn't been taught how to raise kids growing up. You know, how parents are supposed to be with their kids or any of that, whether it's good or bad behavior to mimic or copy. She had nothing to go off of. So she was raising her kids the same way that her brothers and sisters raised her. And so literally I came into the picture, and she couldn't go to the grocery store with her kids because her kids would literally just take off. You know, I mean, I can even think, like, when my daughter was little, she'd run off, but she wouldn't run off to where she couldn't see me. But they would literally try to get as far away from her as they could because they thought it was funny. So when I came in the picture, it was like, okay, how do we get these kids to understand the boundaries and all of that? And that was a real challenge for me, being new into the situation, but them not having a dad. So it's like, do you want me to take on this role? And at the time it was, yes, I want you to take on this role because I can't handle it. But then years later, when the kids hit 10, 11 years old, and then their dad popped in the picture, it was like, can you be their friend and let their dad take over as their parent now? I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, I have been their parent for so long. Now you want me to be their friend and let their dad be their dad. So, yeah, that's kind of a little off topic, but that's kind of what I went through with that blended family dynamic. It was really challenging.
One thing that I take away from the things that all of you were saying, and it was a line that Chuck used when he was speaking, is you have to find what works. And I think that's what being a modern dad is about, is that there are no, set ways of doing things. There are all sorts of stereotypes about what roles parents should play or fathers should play, or how blended families should work, all that. And you just have to find what works in your particular situation and be open to that and be open to exploring that. And as one of you pointed out, communication is so important. Talking about it, working it out, expressing those feelings is the key to finding that balance that works for the particular situation. Because let's face it, right now, there is really no such one model or situation that is considered normal. You have families with 2 fathers, you have families with 2 mothers, you have split families, you have blended families, you have all sorts of different types of configurations, all of which are valid families, and all of which find their way to function as a family unit.
Did you know Chuck, Larry, before the interview?
I just ran right up to him and was like, hey, you don't know me, but I want to know all about you being a dad. That wasn't awkward at all. No, I'm kidding. I've known Chuck for 12 years. Chuck and I went to the Tony Robbins event. That's actually where we were at the time of the interview. So during the interview, we were about 20 hours in to the Tony Robbins event. So that's probably why we look pretty energized, but pretty exhausted at the same time. But yes, I've known Chuck for about 12 years.
Cool.
So I've got a question. And part of it is, I think, around our focus on modern dad. And I mean, I really like Tom's comments that say, look, when you redefine the family, and we're in a world now where family's getting redefined, and the modern part is the part that I think sometimes is hard for us because we have traditions that we think we need to follow in a world that isn't quite like that. And how do we have a conversation with dads and about dads' role in a evolving definition of family, where sometimes some of the older perspectives or the fundamental perspectives or the religious perspectives or some of those perspectives come in and are at odds with what we need to do in order to make sure our kids are fine. And so I wondered, as we get into that and as we get more of these conversations with the dads on the street, that we start to see that what is it we could offer to dads about a new paradigm on dadness, on what does it take to show up as a great dad, even if the world says that's not what we do. Because maybe your family needs you to do that when before you never ever thought about doing that. And that's where I think, where I think we have great value is how do we start to be a chronicler of what is instead of how it's supposed to be? Because I think we've probably moved past what it's supposed to be. And what if the modern dad was the one who was very clear about saying, hey, I'm really attuned to what is. And in this moment that I see this, what is it I should be thinking about? What is it I should be doing? Who do I check with if I need guidance? What are the thoughts that are helping me and the ones that are not? And to me, it comes all down to awareness. Maybe the biggest thing I guess I'm saying is that a modern dad has to be really aware, tuned in, watching, so that the information that they get, they can look back on all that they know and go to any of the resources to say, here's how I might be able to support whatever is going on in my family at this time, because the definitions that used to serve us maybe when we were kids or when our parents were kids, that just doesn't seem to be the roadmap anymore. And instead of feeling lost by that roadmap, how might we be, a healthy, sane, productive, happy, set of guidance about how to show up so that family unit stays strong, however it gets defined today.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jay. Because I guess I got a little off track with where I was going in my story, because for me it was I tried so hard to not be the father that my father was. He found that work was really important and traded his time, at his job away from his family. And it was all about making money. And so as I got in, fell into parenthood, my son was born, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do what my dad did, but that didn't necessarily give me that roadmap that you're talking about of how to parent or how to be a dad. I knew what I didn't want to do, but the more I focused on not being that, the more I kind of became that. So I think that's one of the major steps that I've been taking, like in the Kick-Ass Dad podcast, now in the Modern Dad Council, is giving that support to fathers out there to say, it's okay if you screw up. It's okay to lose your temper, but let's learn from that. Let's grow from that. Let's figure out how to deal with teenagers a little bit better. That's one thing I snap, my son, he just, and it's like, ugh, you just want to wring his neck sometimes, but it's like, how do you handle that, right? And I started a series called The Oxygen Mask because I would find myself so stressed out with what was going on with my, maybe a situation with my son, but really it had to do with all these other things that were going on in my life, and he just was coming at me at the wrong time. So therefore, by the time when he came at me, I was already stressed out from all these other things, and so I would explode. So I would react, and that's one of the things I've learned is how to respond in dealing with that.
Hey, Chris, can I ask a question of everybody on the council? Can we just share with everybody how old our kids are? Because maybe we can create some go-to behaviors for somebody who's in the middle of a teen or who's somebody who's got younger kids. And maybe that can, we can direct questions to people who have already been through it to see if maybe we could kind of create some mentor parenting ideas, because, there's nothing like experience to know how to do something. So,
Absolutely.
Larry, how old are your kids, Larry?
I have all boys. My poor, right? So I
got all girls.
I have all boys. So I have an 8-year-old, I have a 6-year-old, I have an 11-month-old, and I have one on the way. So I'm now, as of last night, the proud owner of a minivan.
Wow, you modern dad, you.
That's right.
Awesome.
So I think we've said good things here, and I think if you're talking to most dads are obviously very, very quiet about their inner struggles. As Chris talked about, the reacting versus responding. But here, if you're looking at the big picture, what I really think this council can do is give dads strategy. And what I mean by that is keeping things very, very simple. So if I'm going to do one thing right per day, what is that one thing right going to be? I think Chuck's interview was hit the nail on the head, because I think that simple strategy of just spending 10 minutes, the pillow talk with the kids. I mean, my wife and I do that with ours. I know that's one thing that my kid look forward to every night, and I believe it's because we obviously have more than one. You have 3 and another one on the way. So I think as you have more kids, or where you have more kids in the family, it becomes more important to just carve out, even if it's just 10 minutes per day. It's carving out just 10 minutes a day for just on purpose one-on-one time. I think if you actually implement if you take anything from this entire show, this entire interview today, it's if you can implement that one step of spending one-on-one time with each of your kids every night, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. I think that's going to be extremely impactful, because as our kids get older, you're constantly on a daily basis, you're reinforcing that communication. And they know, I mean, kids thrive on routine. So they know at the end of every day, they're going to get one-on-one time with you. And I mean, what I've noticed with that is that my kids will open up to me like they never have throughout the entire day. There are those things that they share with you that they haven't said all day long. And I think that's one core strategy that any man with kids, especially more than one, can take from today's show.
I think that's absolutely right. And I have 2 boys, 12 and 8. And my 12-year-old chooses an interesting time to have that communication with me. It's either in the morning when he takes his shower before school, or sometimes he takes it after school when he comes home, and he'll ask me to come sit in the bathroom. Of course, he's in the shower, with the curtain closed, but that is when he says, "Dad, I need to talk to you." And so that's the 10 minutes when he opens up about things that are on his mind, things maybe even about my parenting that he wants to discuss with me. And what I've found also, going back to Chris's point about, how do you learn to respond and not react and not blow up sort of when they push your buttons, is that if you model the good stuff to your kids on an ongoing basis, which I think we all try to do, they actually sometimes model it back to you. My son will say to me, "Dad, relax. Dad, take it easy. Hey, this is not a crisis. And he will push back at me the calm that I've taught him in the times when I've really managed to be calm. So that kind of creates a cycle of bringing the tension level and the anxiety down. So like if I'm not capable of doing it in the moment, sometimes the child can actually do it if you've given them the tools.
Yes, that was beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Tommy, did you want to chime in on your kids? And
So to Jay's question, we have a 17-year-old who will be graduating high school this year. We have a 13-year-old girl as well, and then my son who's 11. And with the three kids, the dynamics are very, I don't want to say all three are different. Betsy, who's the oldest, she is very her way or the highway. So there's some butting of heads. I mean, I gave her the talk years ago when I was first dating her mom, saying, I'm not here to replace your dad. I'm in love with your mom. I just want all of us to, be a family. And of course, we're in the car, and of course she's doing this, texting, and then looks at me going, okay, whatever. And so it's a very unique relationship I have with her. Her sister Becca and I we every once in a while will go on date nights, just her and I. So to Thomas's point about the one-on-one time, that's what we do, because she is very like my son, and what I mean by that is they have big hearts and they just want to please everybody, and we've nicknamed them early in our relationship as the Wonder Twins. Because they really could be legitimately blood brother and sister. So that is, for me, it's a very unique situation, because I came from a divorced family. It was just my mom and I for many years. And so coming into a family with two girls when it was just my son and I, the dynamics were really different and a lot of drama. I've watched too many episodes of Dance Mom. Very happy Honey Boo Boo's off the air because your IQ points just drop being in the same
sink
room.
like a stone.
Exactly. And so, with my situation, having a 17-year-old girl who, again, I'm very blessed. All three kids are super smart. All three kids enjoy school. All three kids are going to go on to greater, bigger things. But eventually it's going to kill me sooner or later with the drama in the house. And so, the one-on-one is so vital. It's one-on-one. With my son, because I only have him every other weekend, that has changed immensely. My phone calls with him, because I call him every night, my phone calls with him have gone from 15, 20, 30 seconds to now we're talking 10, 15, 20 minutes. Wow. Betsy, the oldest, we're still working on our relationship. So it's a very, yes, I mean, obviously you're loyal to your kids. I'm loyal to all three kids, but I'll have, try to have conversations with Betsy, and it's like hitting your head against a brick wall. So you're talking earlier, Jay, about having a mentoring group within a mentoring group. I know I need mentoring with having a 17-year-old. That is something that I would look forward to hearing from our listeners as well. Well, how did you, as a bonus dad, how did you react to having, an older child? So I'm going to throw that back to you guys.
I rode in the car with my mom over to my grandma's house each week. My mom's side of the family is really close, and every week we'd go visit grandma.
Right.
And it was that 20-minute, 25-minute car ride where I said what I wanted to say. It was like, the Catholic Church has your confessionals.
Mm-hmm.
I could completely say what I wanted to say, and I wasn't going to get in trouble. There was no judgment. It was like a safe place, and we could have a conversation about whatever it was that I wanted to talk about, and that for me was phenomenal. I know I have conversations with my son, but I don't know if I have a specific time like that. So I think right now I've learned something from this episode alone that I should start doing more of.
I mean, I think
I'll tell you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm the one with the older kids. So my kids are 28, 27, and 24. I have three girls. So we've got two are married. All three are done with college. So that's what I said when the last one finished college last year. Even I earned nothing this year. already I'll have more income this year than any other year I've had in a very long time. Um, but with three daughters, Tommy, I'll send your questions. I know what it's like with a house full of girls. Um, and even though the kids were 9, 8, and 4 when I came out, and then life was very different. But we made a commitment to raise the kids together. So I was always close, and the kids were a very big part of my life, and still are. Though I live in Florida now, they live up in New England. Um, we built space. That was what we called it. We made space for the events to happen, so that a non-conventional dad, which is really who I was. But it's funny that the thing that made me a really good dad, I think, was the fact that I stopped trying to be the dad that everybody said to be. Maybe the biggest lesson that came from this, from my whole, was it finally gave me permission to be authentic with my kids. And authentic dads, I think, can make a huge difference with their kids. They teach them so many more things than trying to look perfect and get all this right. Maybe the thing to remember for me in this thing is that creating the space. One of the things we did was that pillow talk at night when the kids were with me. We always talked about what it was like when they were kids and what it was like when I was a kid. And I come from a big Italian family. There's 6 kids. I'm third. So, I mean, we have loads of cousins, and they have lots of aunts and uncles, and so they loved hearing these stories. And in that moment, they had a connection to all that was going on around them. So they felt connected as well as they had time. So I guess to me, the things that worked in a really non-conventional relationship was we made time so that they were big and important in my life, and they knew it. And when they were with us, it wasn't me going out and buying them things all the time. It was, how do we spend time with each other and talk about things that matter? And that doesn't mean they always do it. I'll say as a parent of older kids is, not everything they say is important. Not everything they say, life-threatening, unless it's truly life-threatening. Most, what kind of, and one of the biggest things I learned with my kids was, let me really determine whether this one deserves a follow-up or just I heard you, but I'm not doing anything with that. Because there's no room to do anything with that. You're just venting or you're sorting it out. And when you need something, we've got time for that. But I'm not going to react when I could respond. And I think creating space allows you to respond instead of react. And we become saner parents when we are wise enough not to let absolutely everything shoot us in or get us going. And so to me, that's the big lesson. I have older kids who have made it on the other side, and they're fine through some difficult circumstances. This is not what they planned, not what I planned, but we made it on the other side, and they're fine, they're happy, they chose wisely about life, and that happened because we were intentional, we showed up, and we made space.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I guess I'm the last one to share about my kids' ages. But I have a son who's 13 and my daughter's 5. 2 different moms. I've been married twice, and with each woman I had a child. So that's I have a unique relationship with each one of them. And I wouldn't say that we get along, but I wouldn't say that we fight either. It's just kind of take it day by day type of a situation. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I get my son, I have shared custody of both my kids, but when I went through the divorce with my daughter, I was working at the factory, working night shift, and so I don't technically have her as often as I'd like, so I don't get her half the time, whereas I do get my son half the time, so that is nice. I get him about an extra day a week compared to my daughter, but legally I'm only supposed to have my daughter every other weekend. So that's been a nice compromise that my ex has made with me to allow me to have that time. When it comes to spending time with my kids, I try to make sure that I'm there and I'm present and doing things with them, whether I played Risk with my son the other day, and always help my daughter color, just all kinds of different things. She loves the iPad, so she likes to do different projects on the iPad. They have these little kid games, which are so cool. So we create these little skits, on with the Disney characters and such. But I don't know. It's kind of rough for me because, like I said before, when my son was born, I didn't want to do the things that my dad did. The last thing I wanted to do was to put my kids through living in two separate households. That was really rough on me growing up. And now I have the two kids that I do have are both living in separate households. It's like, dang it. Part of me, I felt like I've really worked on this and worked through this, but a lot of me felt as though I was a screw up. I did all these things wrong because my life didn't end up the way that I anticipated it becoming. And looking back, I mean, I know there was situations in each relationship, but for me, each time I got married, I was in it to win it. I was committed, and that's what marriage was to me. And in both the relationships, the women left, and so I was left stuck to pick up the pieces and kind of figure things out. So, anyway,
can I comment on that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so number one, Chris, I think that's so empowering because, I mean, number one, you just shared something that I think a lot of guys out there are really, really struggling with. We as men, we tend to think about things and whether we succeed or we fail. So, being the fact that the marriage didn't work out, we put a label on that, hey, my marriage failed, I failed, failure. And I think a lot of guys feel that way. And I think what you have to do is you have to change your on that. You have to label it differently. Because I can tell you this. I grew up in a house where my mom married 3 times. And in between those marriages, there was relationships that was in and out. So there was never a stable father figure. And I can tell you this, coming from a background like this. I never had a relationship with my biological father until I was 30 years old. So I did not know him. I can tell you, though, even though the marriage didn't work out, I think I would have given just about anything to have a father who is stable, even if he didn't live in the house. So let's say, for instance, there's a lot of fathers out there that are on borrowed time kids. They see them every other weekend. They see them maybe one day during the week. But it's not 100% time. But I can tell you this, from a kid who grew up with that kind of background, if you can make those 1 or 2 super impactful, and if you can make those days with purpose, that's a win. And that's a win for it, because that you can label as a success. It doesn't matter if the marriage didn't work out. I mean, because I think it's almost more detrimental that if you stay in a relationship that is completely toxic and then the kids are exposed to that their entire childhood. It's better, for you as a parent, for the mother as well. But as long as you are on purpose with that child during that time, that limited time that you have, that's going to make all the difference, bro.
Yeah, very, very good point. Beautifully said. So, does anybody have any last? I think we're kind of coming to a pretty long, lengthy show, so we'd like to start kind of wrapping it up. I think we've made a lot of powerful, had a great, powerful conversation, made a lot of great points. So, is there any last note that anybody'd like to make?
I got one. So I've been doing a lot of work recently around the millennial generation, trying to understand what they choose, why they choose it in the world that they're going to inherit, and how do we get them ready for life. That's kind of under the program, that's our process name, is Ready for Life. How do we help them? One of the things that came up, and it just see the correlation here to being a dad, is that we're truly in the age of customization. Everybody's phone is exactly the way they want. Their laptop looks exactly what they want. In fact, somebody even told me that the reason why, piercings and tattoos are the big thing is it allows the true inside to come out onto the outside. So that the tattooing is a way of us trying to show the world our uniqueness. You know, it's not enough that we're just physically unique, but now we have to do the artwork on the outside too. But so look past that just for a minute and say, what's the message? The message is, I think we're all trying to really be who we are. And maybe that's what the modern dad is. The modern dad is just very aware of what he needs to do in his moment based on the world that he's got. And that he needs to be confident enough to trust that he has all the right ingredients to show up to it if he makes space, talks to people, and shares what he feels. And maybe some of those are the blocks, because sharing what you feel hasn't been in our wheelhouse. I mean, we're not supposed to. So there's some societal norms that say you do and you don't. But if we're in this age of customization, what kind of dad do you want to be? And I'm only speaking from experience in that, because, you know, when I came out, I didn't belong anywhere. The gay world said, well, who wants you? You got kids. And the straight world said, God, you're gay. We don't need you. So both places said there's no room for you. And what I'm finally realizing is that it wasn't up to them to tell me how. It was for me to tell me how. How do I want to be with my kids? How can I be authentic, fully aware of who they are, and fully present to who they are? And if I could do that, no matter what the world thinks of it, then I'll go out and create for them the kind of dad, the kind of relationship, and the kind of support that I know they need because I'm paying attention. So maybe the thing as a modern dad, we can just think of the word tattoo. You know, that tattoo is your unique image. That's what you've got. And in this moment, what do you want to do with it? So that the things that matter most to you happen. Relationship with your spouse or your partner, relationship with your kids. Even if the rest of the world says that's not how you do it, you know, most of the time the rest of the world's not that right all the time. So what is it that you want, and how can you be truly unique? That to me, I think, is what a modern dad is.
Thank you for checking out the Modern Dad Council. Thank you, Jay Forte, Larry Hagner, Thomas Fiffer, and Tommy Maloney. We appreciate it.